The day started like any other. I hailed a taxi, slid into the back seat, and gave the driver my address. He turned to me with a calm face, but something in his eyes made my stomach tighten. There was a glint, a wildness behind his calm demeanor, like an animal barely holding itself back. I ignored it. I was exhausted, and I just wanted to get home. This city messes with your head after a while. Streets full of strangers, every one of them dealing with their own private chaos. I texted my friend Sophia to let her know I was on my way. Nothing out of the ordinary, just casual, no sign of what was coming. It was subtle at first. He took a left instead of a right. Just a small deviation, easy to explain away, but then he started speeding up. Really speeding up. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror more than they looked at the road. His fingers tapped on the wheel, faster and faster, and there was this nervous energy in him that spread to me. My gut was screaming. Something was wrong. I texted Sophia again, dropped her my location just in case. I wasn't scared yet, just anxious, paranoid maybe, the kind of paranoia the city breeds in you, where every face is a potential threat. Then he pulled off the highway onto a dirt road, middle of nowhere. My pulse quickened. Why is this happening to me? Ran through my head over and over. I tried to talk to him, but he didn't respond. His eyes stayed fixed ahead, his fingers now drumming a frantic rhythm on the wheel. My hands were shaking as I texted Sophia, but I could barely type. I tried the door handle, but it was locked. My heart pounded in my ears, and then he grinned. A slow, cold grin, like a shark that knows it's got you. A flash of red and blue lit up the road behind us. A police car. Relief flooded my body, almost making me dizzy. The cab pulled over, and the officers stormed up to the car, yanking the driver out and slamming him against the hood. I watched, stunned, as they shouted things I couldn't hear through the window. One of them opened my door and asked if I was okay, like that was supposed to make it all go away. They told me the driver was wanted for kidnapping, assault, and worse. My stomach turned. This wasn't random. I wasn't just unlucky, I was chosen. The police took me to the station for a statement. Everyone acted like it was over, like I was safe now. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. I asked the detective why the driver was out there, how he picked me, and all I got was a shrug. They didn't have all the details. The ride home afterward felt unreal. Too quiet, too empty. When I got back, Sophia was waiting for me. She looked pale, like she'd seen a ghost. She didn't ask me anything, and I didn't offer. We just sat there, silent. A few days later, I saw his face again. On the news. They said he was part of an underground network of fugitives hiding in plain sight. The creepier part? No one could trace the taxi company he worked for. His license? Fake. The car? Registered to a dead man. It was like he never existed. It messed with my head. Maybe he wasn't even human, just some ghost haunting the roads, preying on people like me. And then Sophia started acting weird, distant. I caught her deleting texts when she thought I wasn't looking. She confessed eventually. She knew something was off about the taxi, but she hadn't told me. She didn't want to scare me, she said. She'd been following true crime forums for months, obsessed with cases like this. She thought she was helping, keeping me calm, but all she did was leave me in the dark. I didn't trust her after that. I didn't trust anyone. Not the city, not the cops, not my own instincts. A few days later, an unknown number called me. It was the cop from the station. They were still digging into the driver's background, and they'd found something. Surveillance footage. It showed me getting into the cab, but I was laughing, like I was in on it. The cop didn't accuse me of anything, but I could hear the suspicion in his voice. I started questioning everything. Had I really been in control? Or was I just another player in this twisted game? Then came the final blow. A letter in the mail, no return address. Just a single sheet of paper with one sentence. You're next. My blood ran cold. I hadn't escaped. The driver, the cops, Sophia, they were all just pieces in a bigger game. And now it was my turn to play. Story 2, I knew something was off the second we took that left turn. My gut twisted, like when you're about to do something real stupid but can't stop yourself. The driver, guy named Pablo, looked like any other dude. Normal shirt, dead eyes, messy beard. But the way his hands gripped the wheel, real tight like he was hiding something, made my skin crawl. We were headed downtown. At least that's where I thought we were going. But the streets, they didn't look right. It was like I'd seen them before, except not really. My phone's GPS told me we were going in circles. I thought, okay, he's just dumb. But no, this was deliberate. Pablo knew exactly what he was doing. He was dragging this out, ticking the meter up with every corner we passed. He probably thought I was too stupid to notice. Thing is, I notice everything. The smell in the car, that cigarette smoke, heavy and stale. His hands, trembling, his eyes darting to the rear view like he's checking me out, seeing if I'm dumb enough to let him get away with this scam. I wasn't. I pulled out my phone. At first, just to check how bad it was. But then I hit record. I wasn't letting this guy get away. "You missed a turn," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My heart was racing, though. I had no idea what would happen if I called him out. Guys like Pablo, they didn't play fair. "Nah, man, traffic's bad," he shot back without looking at me. He was sweating. I could see the glisten on his neck. "Bullshit," I said. I hit stop on the recording, but kept my phone in my hand. "You're driving in circles." His eyes met mine in the mirror. For a second, I saw fear, then nothing. His face went blank. That's when the car slowed down, too fast for it to be casual. We were in an alley now, walls closing in. I didn't like this at all. "Get out," he muttered, not looking back. "What?" I clenched my phone tighter. "Out!" I opened the door slowly, keeping my eyes on him. But just as I stepped out, he slammed the gas, kicking up dust as he sped off. I barely had time to jump out of the way. My phone, still in my hand, still recording. I thought it was over. I thought I had something. But when I looked at the footage later that night, it didn't add up. The timestamp on the video skewed. It looked like the whole ride lasted 5 minutes. But I'd been in that car for at least 20, and then I saw it. Pablo's face, right before he drove off. His eyes weren't blank. They were glowing. A sick, unnatural yellow. I should have stopped there. I should have let it go. But no. I had to dig deeper. Turns out Pablo wasn't the only one. There were more drivers like him, all part of some twisted operation. Each one picking up passengers, driving them in circles, and messing with their heads. Some people never made it out of those cars. But I did, and I exposed them. Or so I thought. A week later, I took another taxi. Different driver this time. Normal guy. But as soon as we hit the same streets, I realized something. We were circling. And this time, it wasn't just the driver. The city was in on it. Every turn, every corner was designed to trap me, keep me running in circles, thinking I had control. But I didn't. In the end, it wasn't Pablo or the other drivers that were the problem. It was me. I'd gotten too close, and now I was stuck. No matter where I went, no matter how far I drove, I was always going in circles. And the footage? Gone. Like it never happened. Story 3. The sun was already low, casting long shadows over the road as I climbed into the passenger seat of Jake's car. The smell of gasoline hit me first, a sharp reminder of the old beater he drove. Jake was the kind of guy who loved to take risks, always pushing it, always testing limits. I knew he liked to party, but this drive felt off from the start. His eyes were bloodshot, hands shaking just a little too much as he gripped the wheel. His knuckles were tight, the veins popping slightly, and I could feel the tension radiating off of him. I wanted to say something, but the words stuck in my throat, weighed down by the fear that this time it wouldn't help. We were just supposed to grab some food and head back home. That was it. But the moment we hit the highway, something changed. Jake started swerving, barely missing cars by inches. My stomach dropped, fear clawing up my throat. I shot him a look, but he just grinned like it was no big deal, his grin wide, his eyes reflecting the darkening sky. The idiot thought this was fun. My heart started pounding. Each jerk of the wheel brought us closer to disaster. I kept looking at the speedometer, my palms sweaty against my jeans, and every time I thought it couldn't get worse, he'd stomp the gas harder. The needle jumped higher, and I could feel the car struggling to keep up, the engine roaring like a wounded animal. A sharp right turn almost threw me against the door. I grabbed the handle, knuckles white, and hissed through clenched teeth, "Dude, slow down," trying to keep my voice steady. He laughed like this was some kind of game, like the highway was his personal racetrack. I didn't trust him. Not anymore. I hadn't for a while, but I kept quiet for too long, and now it was too late. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone, trying not to make it obvious. I dialed 911 under the seat, hoping they'd track us down before Jake killed someone. Or me. I kept glancing at him, his face illuminated by the passing streetlights, each flash showing just how out of it he really was. His pupils were blown wide, and he blinked slowly, like he was struggling to stay aware of what was happening. Jake kept talking. About nothing, really. Just the kind of dumb shit guys like him ramble on about when they're too high to care. He didn't notice me dialing, didn't even glance over. My thumb hovered over send, but then his voice got louder, more intense. "You gotta trust me, man. I've done this before." He was slurring, not making any sense, and I knew then he was way too far gone. His words blurred together, mixing with the growl of the engine and the wind rushing past. It was a nightmare, and I was trapped in it. I hit send, hoping they could hear the madness through the noise. Then, the sirens. Thank God for the sirens. Jake's face went pale, and for a second I thought he might actually stop, but no. He floored it instead, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I held my breath, thinking about all the ways this could end, none of them good. The car lurched forward, and the world outside became a blur of lights and colors. I could hear the tires screeching as he swerved, and I could feel the fear in my bones, cold and paralyzing. We hit the gas station, where he finally stopped, cops surrounding us in seconds. They dragged Jake out, cuffing him right there on the concrete. I thought it was over, that I could finally breathe. But when they searched him, they found the drugs. Not just any drugs, stuff that didn't belong to him. Jake wasn't just high. He was carrying for someone dangerous, someone who didn't like loose ends. I watched as they pulled the bags out of his pockets, their expressions shifting from frustration to something darker. It wasn't just a couple of joints or pills. It was something bigger, something that made the officers exchange a look that twisted my gut in knots. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about who might be watching me. The paranoia set in fast, and it wasn't just the cops or Jake's sketchy friends. I kept seeing shadows, cars I didn't recognize, feeling like every stranger was staring too long. Every time I stepped out of my apartment, I felt eyes on me, like I was being hunted. My phone would buzz, and I'd jump, half expecting it to be a threat, some warning that they knew where I was. I thought I was losing it until the night someone broke into my apartment. That's when I found out. Jake wasn't the only one involved. The drugs he was carrying, mine, planted without me knowing. The dealer pinned it on both of us. They left a note, sloppy handwriting, threatening, telling me I owed them. I tried to run, but it didn't matter. They had my name now. They were coming for me. The shadows I saw weren't just in my head. I could hear footsteps outside my door at night, whispers in the hallway that stopped when I approached. I knew they were watching, waiting for me to make a move. And the worst part? Jake knew it all along. He'd smiled at me when they dragged him away, that same stupid grin. Like he knew exactly what was coming for me. Like he had set this whole thing up, and now he was just sitting back, watching it unfold. I thought about confronting him, visiting him in jail, demanding answers, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't change anything. The damage was done, and there was no way out.